sense is a little bit provocative. You said at some point that you want bias in models. What did you mean with that?
I definitely want bias in models because something that sometimes frightens me is that people think that there is some kind of fairness and divine in the name of artificial intelligence. And they don't understand that it's a mathematical method and it doesn't get better than the things that you put in. And you think that if you don't understand also that this basis is on values, it's if you have every person in the world as one data point, and then you think, okay, now we have fairness in the world. Okay, Sweden, we are 0.1% of people. And in Sweden, we think that every person has the same value, whether it's man, woman, ethnicity, everyone has the same value. Girls go to school, Sweden votes, it's women in Sweden that have voting rights, and if you kill a woman in Sweden, it's a crime. If you look at these people mostly in the world, it's not the same fact. So if we don't have bias in models, we just look at the numbers, then a woman will not have voting rights in the future. So I'm definitely for bias.
So the core topic here is that how can we work with AI in such a way that it reflects the cultural values of many different countries, and that ultimately would be understood as bias if you look at the mathematically on the total population of the world. Is that a summary?
It's a good summary because it's interesting that when you have data, then you don't think of it as bias. But if you see what kind of data and where you got the data from, then you maybe understand, okay, this reflects my reality. And if you don't have understanding that cultures are different and people have different kind of both experience and possibilities, then you can think, oh, this is not bias. This is the color of skin. Yeah, for me, but I'm a really small percentage of people. So I mean, I think that's super important to think that this is not going to be like one size fits all. We have to think of different cultures because we are so alike.
But do you get a lot of pushback? Because that is a super provocative statement. But when you unpack it, there's a lot of truth in here. And I give another example. We had Eric Hugo as a guest here last week. He's born in South Africa. He's born in the same hospital as Elon Musk, like 2 months away. So he's born in this era where he grew up with apartheid. So he has this whole feeling. He's been working in Silicon Valley. You know, he's working at the Silicon Valley company right now, and he's Swedish since 25 years. And he loves Sweden. He's diehard, loves our values. And he really taught me a lot about the nuances of language. And what happens when everybody simply speaks English, or the model, even if they understand Swedish, the whole model takes your Swedish language into the large language model in English and then back again, and it actually spits out something that culturally is a little bit different. And to me, this is really interesting because it's this, you know, when we say bias, it has such a negative connotation right now. But if we maybe put another label on it, it's about finding the values and the cultural diversity. And how can we talk about the truth about cultural diversity without being pigeonholed as bias? Because is it a bug or is it a feature? You know,
and it's also a technical question, and it's a decision on how to steer the model. So after you've done the pre-training on a big set of data, usually the whole of internet. And then you do some kind of fine-tuning of the model. And here we could go into the Gemini debacle that happened.
This is a good example of this, right? Could you explain?
So then there were a lot of pictures on the web where people tried to generate different people from different eras of historic times. So, for example, they tried to generate Nazi people, but the images turned out to be Asian people in uniforms. So it's and there's a lot of examples in that line of thinking. But it seems to be hard to create for Gemini to create white people, basically, because it's been fine-tuned in a way to support in some way diversity, or Google's version of diversity, would the critics say. So they got a lot of pushback from being too woke, or whatever you want to say. Like if you're Elon Musk, then you're criticizing.
Then you would think Google, Gemini went woke. That was the joke.
Yeah,
right?
So of course he made a big thing out of this. But the question is, if you don't do anything, what do you end up with then? And should you steer the model, or how should you steer the model?
Are you provoked by Jeanette's comment as an AI engineer?
A little bit. I can definitely
Let's debate a little bit. Let's debate now. Let's debate.
So if I take the other side, I can definitely see the side of the engineers at Google trying to be fair in how they want their model to be seen by the world. And I'm sure that somebody was thinking good thoughts and trying to let's not only portray white people. Let's make sure that we have other nationalities, other culture.
And I think if I would steelman or argument against you, of course people want to do this. In cultures, if we take the Swedish culture as an example, we have maybe an extreme equality, a whole welfare system, the way we have children, the way we have our child support. You're really pushed as a woman out to work, even if you don't want to. We lived in Australia for several years, and then there's no system where you can have daycare subsidized. So there, a daycare for children is $100 per day. So literally, it's nuts. Someone is home with the child. If it's the guy or if it's the girl, doesn't matter, but someone is home. It builds a whole other narrative, a completely different narrative. And when we then, the Swedes, trying to explain our narrative in Australia, it doesn't fly. They can't really connect with it. On the other hand, my wife told me, when she came back and she was really immersed in the Australian narrative, it was almost like, oh my God, are you home with the kids? That's really strange. Oh, no. You need to work, And in the end, we want to. Well, I think I'm from the point where you want to decide this on your own, right? And there are different views, and how then to view models? Should models streamline everybody into one bucket? Everything should look the same? Or how can we have cultural diversity? How can we have diversity in values without ending up in this sort of war zone of wokeism or not wokeism and all that? It's really strange. It's really difficult, I guess.
Yeah. And who gets to decide?
And who gets to decide?
It feels like now we know who gets to decide a lot of things since OpenAI put out these models. I have a colleague that is working as a researcher, and she made a presentation the other day for a group, and it was on bias because I said she was also a bit broken with that. But then she showed me that she had trying to make pictures of CIOs. Oh. And she had
Chief Information Officers.
The executive officer, the highest
CEO.
Sorry. And so she had prompted differently, and she had got pictures, and they were. She showed 10 of these. It looked like the same guy, white, 40-ish, handsome.
This is it.
So everyone looked the same. It was a bit of angle, but everyone looked the same. And then she asked the DALL-E also to produce. I've heard. I don't know if this one is a myth or nothing or not. It's someone told me when ChatGPT first came out, someone asked what is the most common profession for a woman. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't heard this one.
Okay. So I don't know if this is true or not, but and the answer was prostitute.
It's the oldest
job. No, because of all images of women on internet, most of them are poor.
Porn is of course driving the model.
So I don't know if that's true, but my research fellow, she asked about a picture of work and woman, and it came up with 10 images, and in the 10 of men, they were kind of powerful poses and so on. One was naked. In women, it was kind of not powerful poses, and only 2 had clothes on.
Oh, wow.
So even though if you're...
Now you're still manning your own argument around bias, right? Because then we have different challenges around how to deal with this, right?
It is. For me, bias is that we have to say what kind of values do we want to have. That's bias for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the engineers at Google tried to do that. It's just that they didn't do enough of a good job to do it.
But is this even solvable, or do we become? But what scares me is when we end up in a way that there is one size fits all for all of the world, which will not work. And I kind of like when Elon Musk came up with Grok, the large language model. Obviously, it's going to be roasting people, be rude, and all that. It's a little bit like we need to get to a point where you can choose which AI personality or values that suits you. Yeah. And I have another argument on that. This is why it's super important that there are language models that are sort of Swedish to really connect with the Swedish values, and that there is real value of having that. Tricky now to, and then we can get into the debate: should you do a Swedish language model in an American model? Is that good, or should we rather do a Swedish language model in maybe an open source model from Europe? Because as soon as you go into the American language model, that will influence the cultural values, if I believe Eric Hugo. And I truly believe it. The language and culture, I think, has... It's sort of different languages will take you in different directions. Like some are more philosophical, some are more commercial, I would argue.
Have you heard any European projects on specific language models? I think that there's, for example, Finnish language is very special, so it's hard to find a good language model.
You know the Solita, Poro?
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of the one I know.
That's where I was going,
right?
So I wonder if is that a common thing in like, are there other examples
of having? I think everyone wants to have a model in there. The most interesting thing that I'm kind of following a person I'm working with from Italy. They're trying to do a language models on culture.
Oof. Wow.
Yeah, I think that was interesting because that is such a big part of us. And I'm thinking also about we mean different things when we use different words, like you're saying.
Exactly.
So and even within Sweden, I mean,
yes, of course.
If you say something in the northern Sweden, it has a totally different context than here in Stockholm or maybe in Skåne.
It's so true. I grew up in Borås, and then moved to Stockholm, 99, living a couple of years in Australia and in between there. And those things is really, it's different compartments in my brain. And someone even said, like Eric said it, he said it really well. South Africa is he grew up in a very quite violent place. He sort of, if you read the Elon Musk biography, he's not unique. Everybody had that upbringing in South Africa. So he said it, he realizes that when he talks South African, he has a much more aggressive vocabulary. Yeah. So actually, he as a person, when he switches between Swedish and he goes and talks like he goes into his South African brain, so to speak, it actually makes him be more different in personality. And I totally believe this.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think language, that's my experience when I started speaking English professionally. Yeah. I felt like I went into different personality when I started to speak English. Like if you go abroad, the first times I did it, I invented a new personality because I was a different person. I'm in a different country. Yeah. I'm doing different things. I'm speaking a different language. Yeah. So I felt that. Do you feel the same?
But and especially if you want to, jokes or something else like connect, it's hard to do if it's not in your kind of mother tongue. Definitely differences. So and I'm thinking sometimes that we as people, if we see all the evolution, we are always we are so lazy. We want something to do for us. I mean, in the beginning you had to be really strong to survive, but now people don't have to be strong anymore. I mean, that has also some negative effects on our health, because since we don't work out, we don't do things like that. So I'm also thinking of if we're the prolonging of this curve, that we say we want to have so much artificial intelligence. People don't need to learn to compute, they don't need to learn to count, they don't need to learn to read or write or anything. And then I feel like,
where are we going?
Yeah, what do we want? Do we want to kind of lie in a bed and look up in the ceiling and be part of metaverse?
Yeah, it's this. It's the WALL-E movie, the WALL-E movie, the old Pixar movie, where they're all floating around and super fat.
Right.
But with this,
I think we have that as the last point in
that's the last point.
So we can
super
say
fat.
That.
But I think what an interesting introduction. But let's do the proper introduction. Jeanette Nilsson from RISE. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I am actually, one of the key things I'm excited about, and we don't know each other from before, but I already picked up on it. How do you make decisions happen in EU? We need to talk about that. I mean, how do you make decisions happen? You have a background, you work with EU, you can introduce yourself in detail. I also want to introduce the theme for today, before we get stuck into who you are, Jeanette. And the overarching theme is to talk about the AI ecosystem. But I think you framed it even better here when you got here today. And it's like, how do we look at the Swedish AI ecosystem, and how do we together become a strong force with a clear direction and clear focus together? In order to make things happen, in order to have a voice, as an example in EU, we need to really work with a focus on something. And now we have a great ecosystem, but how can we make it focused? I think, can I summarize the theme in that way?
Perfect, yeah.
So with that theme in mind, welcome Jeanette Nilsson. And also, of course, Anders is not with us today. So we have Jesper.
Hello.
And Jesper, what's your surname? Fredriksson. So I was guessing between. I was thinking Jesper Nilsson. No, that was Jeanette Nilsson. So Jesper Fredriksson,
that's okay.
Who is a good friend of ours, and he's been on the pod before, so you can check out Jesper as well. And you are working at Volvo Cars.
True.
And
as an AI engineer.
As an AI engineer. So I'm this sort of a business business guy, and Anders is the techie guy. So now you're standing in for the techie guy.
Yes, I'll try to fill his shoes. That's hard, great. But I'll try.
That's great. But with that, Jeanette Nilsson, could you please just introduce yourself a little bit, what you do in RISE and your background, and then we can move on from there.
All right. Jeanette Nilsson, I'm born and I'm living in Luleå. And I've been working in a lot of places, always traveling. I wanted to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah, that's what you said. You introduce yourself as a ballet dancer.
Yeah, sometimes I do actually. And then, because that was my life when I was young, and my father said, Jeanette, I think it's better that you become a Master of Science instead. And I listened to my father. I started at the University of Luleå, Technical University.
Right?
LTU, yeah. And then I started to work for the road administration, building roads and bridges. And I was the only woman in 800 people.
An actual civil engineer.
Yes,
a proper civil engineer. With the real project, the big ones.
Yeah. Actually, there is a bridge still that they call Jeanette's Bridge. That I was 25 years old when they made me the head of this kind of building this bridge. And it was such all my male friends from the university like, wow, are you already chief of a building of a bridge?
So it's Jeanette's Bridge.
It's Jeanette's Bridge.
Where can we find Jeanette's Bridge?
It's in Piteå, actually.
Piteå. Which one is it?
They have some. You have to be in Piteå to know where it is. Well, so that's cool, and that was really nice. But then I wanted to work more on designing things, not building things that other one has decided. And we were part then entered in the EU, and I always wanted to work internationally. So then I started to be the EU person for the road administration, and I got in trouble with the department, the Näringsdepartement. Actually, Näringsdepartementet, because I went down to Brussels and I said, "Oh, we want to have these roads in the national agenda," and so on. And they said, "Oh, you must silence this woman. She is kind of disturbing all our negotiations. Please keep her away from Brussels." Yeah. So and my boss, he said, "I'm just telling you, but." Go on, go.
So he was smiling. Yes. Go.
Yeah. So and after that, they recruited me in Brussels to work with firstly infrastructure and then other things. And I learned actually the real, and I have realized, and I'm actually one of few people that have kind of discovered the loop, because most people do the same mistakes as I did in the beginning, talking to wrong people, and in the
how to get shit done in EU.
How to get shit done in EU.
You can probably write a book EU for dummies and make a buckload of money on this.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm trying to use now in my work, because after that I was working as the I have working with as business development näringslivschef, it's called, in different municipalities in Norrbotten, and also started up a gaming community.
Ooh.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that was what can it have been, for 2016, something like that, Arctic Game Lab
What is the Arctic Game Lab?
It was 5 municipalities. Skellefteå had started to have a gaming education program from LTU, and they had a lot of people, smart people, a lot of people that are working in gaming industry are from the northern part of Sweden, and so on. So it felt like everyone doesn't have to move to Stockholm to do this. So then we started to have a kind of ecosystem in the north in 5 municipalities, and in the beginning I was the chairperson for this, and it was really nice because they felt like, oh, a middle-aged woman, so good that you kind of talk to people about what we boys are doing.
So the boys, the cool boys, the gamers, got you as their hero.
Yeah,
as a spokesperson, språkrör, to the.
And because they have felt for so long time, the people had kind of put them in a kind of a position where they were kind of not so good and kind of bad, instead of seeing the
super opportunity to make the
technology and the way how to reach out to people, and especially if you are gaming in doing a game, it has to be good graphics. It has to be interesting. If you are doing an instruction video for someone to kind of manage a data center, it can be super boring and super bad quality. So I'm thinking when I tried virtual reality first time, I felt like, this is how I'm going to work with my mother, and I feel like here in that time Sweden was the best, Finland was the second best, but then Finland, they put in a lot of money to attract people from all over the world, come to Finland and be in these level up kind of positions, and they let people come and they gave them money and to develop companies and so on. So Finland kind of stepped up.
But this is one topic we can talk about later, because you've seen it firsthand in Brussels.
Yeah.
How the Swedes work and how the Finns work and how they do a really good job, in your opinion, and how they have sort of pushed the AI agenda really well. But how did you end up in RISE?
Yeah, but I was recruited to RISE to kind of connect the ecosystem that I've been working with in Sweden and also in Europe with the research from RISE. And I had the
What was the role you were recruited into?
It was like a AI ecosystem driver.
AI ecosystem driver.
Yeah, to drive up an ecosystem in Sweden and also connect it. Now I'm calling myself AI ecosystem expert.
But and Anders, who you knew from before, you guys met at the AI agenda. So,
yeah. So
is this the same time?
It's the same time, yeah, because I was recruited to that, and then Sweden. This was 2019. And Sweden, a lot of people started to have agendas in AI, and most of them have done that purely on research. And RISE, we are a state-owned company, so we can't get direct assignment from the government. But we have talks. Our CEO have talks to the ministers, but they can't like say you have to do this, and we don't have any regleringsbrev or something like that. But we have money from the government, and they kind of in the research bill we have some kind of assignments.
But help us here. Could you frame the context of the role, AI ecosystem expert you call it now? So what's the regleringsbrev? What's the objective of the role, so to speak, and what does it entail?
It has nothing to do with regleringsbrevet.
No, sorry.
So no. But my role is to. Now, when I've been working with this for 5 years, when I started and I met Anders, we were building up something in the AI agenda, and that's something that differs from everyone else in the world, because. In that, when they asked me if I wanted to be the leader, we had a lot of experts in RISE, and especially Daniel Hjelblad, who was our expert.
Oh, Daniel, of course, he's been on the pod.
Yeah,
AI Sweden.
Yeah,
Daniel.
Great. Yeah, so we two worked together in the beginning a lot with this. So he was the expert, and I was kind of driving a lot. So I took in other people's perspective. So in this, the work that we did, it was really from the grassroots level, but and we decided not to try to do something to. Here is what we want. Please give us money.
How did you understand when you put the group together? How did you frame your goal or your mission? At that point, you remember?
The thing that we wanted to do was kind of come forward to the minister with the suggestions for Sweden to kind of start working more with AI. And
what year is this?
It's 2019.
19. Yeah.
And the idea was that we would present it in the beginning of 2020 when COVID came. A lot of people, they just wanted to be part of it. It felt like, okay, we want to have an Apollo project in Sweden. So people in Sweden really, really want to do things. Sometimes we talk so much bad about Sweden. So it feels like sometimes people think, people from abroad sometimes ask me, do you even like Sweden? You're living there, but you even like Sweden? But this shows really the contrary. People they didn't get any money for this. They just wanted to work at it. So we had 6 different working groups, and in the end we had 25 suggestions, and a lot of materials on different people, different perspectives, experts and newbies.
Do you have any favorite projects from that time?
We have 25 different things, suggestions that are ongoing. So none of them are really kind of finished, because there are big ones. It's
big focus areas.
Yeah, actually, they are on the. We have a website for this also, RI.se/AI agenda. And actually people are downloading it, and I don't know really how they know that there is there, because it's kind of difficult to find out. So people still, I mean, we presented it 2021 together with the minister then. And the idea was that we will do things together. We will try to, instead of, I mean, a lot of the problem with the ecosystem in Sweden is that Sweden has this tradition of not being kind of like in Finland. They say this is the way or the highway. everyone has to adapt to this.
And then basically they can create a fourth, but because everybody's signing up to that one message.
Yeah.
And we are not so much.
No, we don't do that. Especially if you see all the authorities, they get a little bit of money and a little bit of money. In Finland, if you take Finland, for example, there are other countries, but Finland is good because it's close and it's only half the population as we have. So we can't say, there are so many, because there are so few. But still, they are more present in different deciding kind of structures that are in Europe. And I'm thinking it surprises me a lot that we have been together with Finland. We became members of the European Union in 95. Yeah. And that is almost 30 years. It's more than 30 years ago. And still it's like something we are still learning in Sweden.
And they have perfected it way... but they've come a lot further.
Yeah, they're kind of seeing, okay, this is the investments that we are doing together. And this is our common play field. We are putting a lot of, especially if we're talking about AI and digital kind of competition, it's not it's not on geographical site. It can be anywhere. So it's a possibility for everyone, but it's also a threat. If you don't understand that, then so in Europe, we have to work a lot more together. And I see that a lot in my work. Germany and France, they are not shy, and Italy, to say this must be good for our industry.
So you're saying in Sweden we should align more internally and then be more aggressive, sort of. The thing, we are always part of every decision in this in Europe, and we decided for the first time in history, all of the three entities, the European Council, the European Commission, and the European Parliament, had decided we are going to work for the digital decade. This is the future. And they put all the efforts to try and to gather all the policies, all the programs towards digital and green. This is the way forward for Europe. We want to do this, and we're going to have everyone on board, SMEs and so on, everyone on board for this. Then if we don't understand that this is where we are going to put all the common efforts, people from different countries, we have to think that what Germany does, we have to be aware of, because it's also a bit of internal competition. So it feels like if we like Finland, when they see that in 5 years' time we would like to have this position, then they started.
Yeah, so you see, this goes back all the way to the conversation we had before the pod, and I think this is a really interesting topic in its own. So we're going from the AI agenda, and we are slipping into how Finland and Sweden is different, and how it really works in EU around these topics to get a focus. So please carry on. I just wanted to the context is moving into the EU perspective here. I think it's very interesting. Let's go there.
And because more and more we have to work more together in Europe, because the competition is from the United States and it's from Asian part. And if development always happens somewhere else than in Europe, then we are going to be subcontractors to everyone else. Yeah. And subcontractors don't make money. And in Europe, we have this way of, someone said to me, people in the United States, they want to work, they are never vacation. In Europe, we won't have vacation, and we work for having vacations. So if I think the important thing, and the ecosystem in Sweden, if we could align, more like people in Finland doing, to trying to see, okay, these are the 3 or 5 things that we want to be best in. For example, everyone thinks that Sweden is best in large language modeling. But if we don't do anything kind of fast to kind of nail this position, Finland will have it. And it's because if I don't think that Finland ever wants to kind of tränga sig för i kön. But if we don't do anything, if we think that, okay, this is our position.
By standing still today or moving slow means slipping.
Yeah.
It really means slipping. If you're not following the productivity frontier, if you're not following the acceleration here, you think status quo is okay. Status quo means slipping.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. So it's like they're standing on this kind of transportman and you're moving backwards.
Backwards.
Yes. So and that's a sad thing to see, that in all kind of different kind of measurements, or where you can have different kind of in all of them, Sweden is a kind of losing positions, and in some, especially for the growth in the country, Sweden is in the last position in Europe. So I mean, I think an important thing for Sweden, since this kind of technology shift is very crucial, and we are good in the consumer perspective to do this. People in their everyday life
we're very tech savvy as individuals, as consumers, right?
But we also have to understand that if we want to have this welfare society, we have to do a lot of changes, a lot of things more smarter, efficient. But if you say that, people like, no, I'm going to lose my job. Instead of thinking, if I can do this more effectively, I can do all of these other things, because Sweden has to step up. It's not like, I can just sit here and someone else will do the work. Now, if that happens, then everyone else will come, because now I think it feels like all people know, and especially with war and everything, that if you don't move forward, someone else will be in first.
Do you have any insights on where are we right now in Sweden? If you compare both within Europe and within the world, like where on a scale would you say we are?
If I just say that what they asked Daniel from Microsoft that in a meeting.
Daniel Ekine.
Yeah, Ekine, right. I have hard times with that.
Yeah, I have hard time with the last name. So.
Yeah. And he said, well, Europe is number 3. And in Europe, Sweden is on the lower half.
Wow.
Yeah. So
he says he's
that.
A deep, knowledgeable guy in tech, deeply connected in Microsoft. So he actually has a picture on this, I think, better than most. And he actually puts us on the lower half in Europe right now. And what is the framing or definition that puts us on the lower half? Is it the investment? Is it the focus? Is it the know-how? Is it the competences? Or do you know what he means with the lower half? I believe it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious in what he sort of puts in the scale.
Yeah, I don't know what he puts, but if I see,
if you do it, then.
Yeah, if I see, then in Sweden we have something that no one else has, is the WASP money.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that also shows that the national amount of research money are really low in Sweden. So that's one thing that takes.
So if you take away WASP, it's ridiculously small amount of investment from the state.
Yeah,
stupidly small.
Yeah, super.
So it's almost like they got lazy and they think WASP is going to save them. It's almost, I get almost super angry with this.
Yeah, so that is one thing, and then also a lot of other countries, they are doing, they are using. It feels like we are, in one way in Sweden, very scared of leaving out our data, but we have our income, we have everything on.
But it's so strange, and we should explain this for our listeners who are not from Sweden, that we are super scared about the whole thing data topic. At the same time, anyone in Sweden can go out and to go to a website and put in a name and get a very lot of detailed information about who you are, all the stuff that is called sensitive data and GDPR, for some reason works to get a hold of. I really don't understand how that can be compliant, by the way.
Let me take the other side of the argument. Are we really scared about data in Sweden? That's not how I feel about it, but
no, because
that may be where I'm sitting.
No, but comparing what we are giving out at allabolag.se.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you compare that to Germany,
Germany,
who has this, they have a background that we need to understand with the East and West Germany and all that. they are. I worked with Vattenfall and had staff in Sweden and Germany and Netherlands, and it's huge difference in very, very big difference.
But in what aspects are we scared about giving out data?
I'm thinking one of the I meet a lot of people, both companies and or some in public sector, that first were afraid of GDPR and say that we can't do anything anymore because of this, and now they're super afraid of the AI Act and all the regulation, and the fear is that they will be fined, that they will have to pay a lot of money. And I'm thinking also that in one way this is it is for protection of people, but if we can't solve this, then people, look at ChatGPT. People know that it's it's crazy, can give complete false information and can steal information from patent and information. But people still use it.
But let me try to answer your question, because I think this is a very interesting question. Because I think that the individual, the persons in Sweden are actually less scared about managing their data than most countries in Europe. Way more casual with this view than Germany. Way more as an individual. However, the companies, and especially the public sector, they went on the biggest, scare. It's like been a huge scare in the Swedish public sector. We can't use cloud. We can't use this. We can't use this. To the point where they're bending backwards on really idiotic topics in a way that is not even logical. So so the whole debate in public sector, I decided not to work with the public sector because I think they're mad. I think they're literally mad.
When it comes to public sector, that I can't speak for, but I believe what you're saying. I see in companies that I've seen, I think that people are realistic about GDPR. I think it's a mindset, and I'm
super impressed. I worked with Vattenfall when GDPR came. Super impressed. First of all, got real expertise as lawyers in early. Of course, they can do that. Vattenfall is one of the big utilities. And then hardcore, instead of being scared, understanding how it works and basically say the core topic, what is legitimate interest? Very simple.
Yes.
If you want to have an electricity bill, I need to be able to have your data. If you want to have a new campaign, I need to be able to send marketing to you. It's a legitimate, and then they basically, they nullified the core topic by really being pragmatic on how they looked at this, and then super good education internally and a lot of discussion on it. And basically, this was never a problem in Vattenfall. Hardcore.
That's my experience as well.
Super smooth.
Exactly.
A lot of work, but super smooth. But if I contrast that to other companies who went scaremongering on, instead of going head on into it and just structuring it, doing a lot of work, but instead of getting scared, I think there was a lot of organizations and public sector that simply got scared. I don't know. This is a rabbit hole, but it's interesting.
I've always seen, like, there's always some legal person at a company that takes the lead on this and says, this is how you should think. And then it's like, yes, you can understand the thinking. And once you internalize that, then GDPR isn't such a
big deal. But the big deal is when you stay on an abstract level and don't really learn. As you said it before. We have a problem when we stay abstract and distant.
You have to get to concrete.
But you said it better before. How did you phrase it when we were upstairs?
I don't remember that.
No, sorry.
I will come back. No, but that's true. And now we have the next step, and it's the AI Act. And I mean, we are going to use data information because people want to use it, and it's going to be in everything in the future. So I think that the important thing is to really understand, okay, I'm going to do a device that helps people to wake up in the morning, or I'm going to do a device that everything is going to collect data. So you have to just think of that when you do that in the beginning. And it's not, but the problem is when you hear that it's going to be a fine on 50 million euros if you do anything wrong. Then it feels like, better let someone else do this wrong before I do anything. Something that is, and we could have began a long time ago in Sweden also to kind of prepare and see, okay, we are the best country in Europe with public administration because we are really good. I don't know why we don't have any confidence in that, because we are, I mean, to give something in skattemyndigheten and to tell someone from another country how we do our declaration. They are kind of, it's like they don't believe it. So, and we have a lot of things, like if your kid is sick and you can just kind of put it into your in your computer saying, okay, I'm sick, my child is sick, and you got money in your bank account tomorrow. So we have a lot of good things. But one of the, I think, of the scare things, I have friends that have children in school and they can't get out the list of pupils.
Yeah.
Because and if they have to phone someone, they don't know who to phone because there are no lists if the kids are going to something together. Yeah.
But so that's probably to your point of public sector. Yeah. It's more challenging.
But it's scary. But help me out here, because I want to structure a couple. I think there's a couple of very interesting topics that is sort of related that leads into each other. I think we need to spend some structured time on. I want to explore together with you, first question, what is the context when we say the AI ecosystem and being an expert in the Swedish AI ecosystem? I want to hear your definition and view of what we mean with the ecosystem. This is one. The other one I really want to get back to, I want to have the storytelling anecdote. I think was brilliant just when we met, Jeanette, how you were... The tips and tricks, making EU decisions work in your favor for dummies. You know, I think that's a beautiful anecdote. What you thought it was, and then how it really works, because I think this is telling a lot about what we need to do in Sweden, how we need to think differently in Sweden, and this. So I really want to get back to that topic on how do we get decisions done. You know, as a task towards getting focus and all that. So that is another super interesting question. And then we have a couple of bigger topics like coming up now. We have the Swedish AI Commission. What is really the Swedish approach to AI and all that? So, but could we take it a little bit like structured? So we start. Let's start with what is the context of the AI ecosystem? Just so we put that to bed. You know, how do we understand this Swedish? You know, when you have that title now in RISE and all that. How do you frame that?
I have decided title myself.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I'm an expert. Yes. Well, in Sweden we have so many different entities working with AI.
Yes.
We have the universities that work on certain level, but not all of the disciplines in the university. I'm thinking one of the problems that I feel that people don't understand, that this is something that kind of concerns everyone, because it's going to be in everyone's daily life for the rest of life in the future. So in the Swedish ecosystem, there are different kind of systems that are working. One is the universities,
academia, university.
Academia. Then we have some of the public authorities working together, Skatteverket and others that are Försäkringskassan, that are really ahead of others.
Yeah, and we have a good friend is Patrik Ekemo, and they're running in Bolagsverket, and they're running even some EU projects right now.
And they are really doing a lot of good things. And he could also be part of the second discussion on how to work.
How to work it.
So in these are and then we have this
so how do so we have the academia is one.
Yeah.
How would you frame? We have the major verken,
the authorities, public authorities.
Key authorities that's taking a lead that is actually a little bit ahead in terms of how to deal with AI. Skatteverket is actually really advanced in Sweden. And we have a couple of examples like that.
Yeah. And then I feel like many companies, bigger companies, are working not kind of connected, but in different ways. And some of them, here I think that it could be something even better. But if I'm trying to first talk about different areas, then we have now starting, Skolverket are now starting to see that this is we want to change, that was one of the 25 points we had. Yeah. We want to change the education system for this. And municipalities are starting to understand also we have to do something about social security. And
you can really understand this also from I did see different consultancies focus on different parts. So we have the academia is one, the big authorities is one. We have a municipality movement going on, and then you have an educational movement going on.
Yeah.
Okay, this is all public sector.
And also a civil society.
Civil society, expand.
Yeah, they are also trying to see that how is this going to be influence us or affect us or others. So I've been to meetings with that because that was also part of the AI agenda to see how people that are having kind of disabilities or others, how can this be a tool that makes people more equal? But then when you're starting to work, big industries are always, like you said, Vattenfall, big industries. They have a plan. They have money. They can do things. And a lot of SMEs, small companies in Sweden, they are subcontractors to these big industries. And these big industries are really important for Sweden. Most of these SMEs, they have more of a trouble, more to see. I've been talking to these kind of branch organizations and so on, Tech Sweden. How can we help the smaller ones? And here has the European Union trying to do initiatives because they see also that Europe contains of almost only small companies.
And this is now you're getting close to the heart of DARDAX. So I grew up working in large enterprise around data and AI, and I think I see a very clear AI divide emerging inside Sweden in terms of enterprise and organizations, where some companies, of course, had the money and had the data, and it came early on their agenda, like Vattenfall. 2012, I've been working on this topic in Vattenfall, and my goal has been with DARDAX, what happens with the mid-size market? I'm not even talking about the small companies. I'm talking about very nice Swedish companies with 1 to 5 billion SEK in turnover. Nice companies. They have not even started. This is, to me, the scary part. And this is what we're talking about. How do we get to that segment?
Yeah, and I meet that segment quite a lot. One of the problems also when I'm meeting smaller companies, up to 50 people, is that most of them have their data in their heads and their hands.
Yeah.
And actually I have to talk about what data is. And if they can actually do a lot of things with just having bills in e-faktura and simple things in administration that would really, really help them. And then I meet another group of small companies that are super skilled, often coming from universities, and they are working with smart AI models, but they don't have any customers. So so when I'm trying to ask them what we can do in the system for them, they say, well, please help these big, for example, Trafikverket or others to do the base of ordning och reda, as I said, because otherwise they can't buy our products. Because and that's also an interesting thing, because when you talk about, when you say language, when people say that data is gold, then people, and then you don't really understand what the data is, they think, okay, the text is data. I have a lot of text. I have a lot of gold. Instead of understanding, okay, I want to do this process, and then I need these kind of parameters and this information in every step. And I haven't collected that. I haven't or maybe I have it, but it's not structured, so then it's not used.
But that's changing now with generative AI. Now, I think even if it's not structured, it's not a problem. You can still ask ChatGPT and put that in the context. So that is, I think, loosening up a little bit this problem. I relate to what you're saying and what we've been talking about when it comes to small and medium-sized companies. It's often I come in there as a data scientist, and the first years there's not much to do because we don't have data. That's a problem. And then at some point after a couple of years, then you can start to do AI because you have data. And I definitely recognize what you're saying. Like if you don't have it structured, then it's hard to do something with it. But with ChatGPT, so I was here as a guest a few weeks ago when we talked about retrieval augmented generation, which is the pattern that sort of came out last year after ChatGPT. So taking your unstructured data into a prompt in ChatGPT and then getting something back. So now I feel like it's loosening up a little bit, and maybe it's easier for small and medium-sized companies who are in that situation at least to work with data. Maybe something that I often meet is that people have not kind of nailed the problem. What is the problem with my company? Is it that my workers don't do enough work, or the competition is too hard, or we need more people? It's easy to say that we have to be more effective. But in what kind of where is the where does it hurt most? So you're saying that it's some sort of basic education on understanding data and the value of data and the value of data in solving problems. Is that the problem more?
Well, I'm thinking like also what vision do we have for Sweden?
Yes, that's a good one.
It's so easy to talk about we are going to use AI for this and we are going to have
for what?
Why? But what kind of country do we want to live in 50 years' time? And if we want to do that, then we know that we have different kind of tools, or what we will call them, to make this happening. And if we know what we are aiming for, it's the same in everything. If we know that this is the society that we want everyone to be nice to each other, no more bullying in school, no more abuse, no more problems. This is what we're aiming for. How can we do that?
But have we defined that?
No.
Because I think this is the core topic. It becomes more and more clear to me. I've been following Mikael Dahlén. He starts a new professorship in Handelshögskolan about well-being and happiness. So it's a very interesting topic. What is the AI utility function? What is the objective with AI that doesn't leave us to become the wally fat guys, miserable, but actually makes the most for humanity, makes the most for us as a productive nation, where we are happier. I think this is very interesting because what is the objective we want with AI then? Is that answered? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think it's that at all. And the problem is like, some people sometimes companies can phone me and say, Jeanette, I need to do an AI. I got this amount of money from my boss and I need to do an AI.
I need AI. For what? What's the problem you're going to solve? What's objective?
Yeah, and then it's a
right?
pilot then. And that's the problem with all of these pilots. No, as I think I would like more people to think of, what do I want to offer if I'm working in the elderly care? Not trying to see, can I squeeze out more time of this and blah, blah, blah. Instead of, what kind of care do I want to be able to give to people that are old in 10, 15, 20 years? I want to do this. Okay, what do I have to do right now? Because we know that there are a lot of inefficiency and ways that we can be smarter. And that also... I have also found out, because I have a lot of people from the union, part of AI agenda. People want to contribute, but you also have to feel that you are important. Because if you don't feel that you are important, I think that's something that is needed from everyone. And in Sweden, it basically, as we talked in the beginning, if you have a job, then you are important. And that's maybe something that we have to talk a little bit about.
But I get a really strong connection with what you're talking about now. We say we want to be strong as an ecosystem to drive a common focus. And if we learn now from how the best tech giants is doing AI, they have a laser sharp focus on the business problem or objective they have, and then they go out and seek the technology they need. So we don't start from the technology. Like Google starts from how do I improve the experience of Google Maps? And then they realize early on with Google search, we need to invent MapReduce. we need to invent a file structure that can support our business problem.
That happened in the Stone Ages, right?
This is the Stone Age, 15 years ago. But it's a laser sharp focus on a business problem. It's like Elon Musk, I'm going to go to Mars. Then I need to solve technology problems. And here we now go the other way around, and we are trying to rally ourselves around that. But if I ask the simple question, what problem are you solving? We have a really, really hard time defining it. And we know that as AI engineers, one of the biggest problems, I think, when I look at AI problem solving or making value in any large company I've been working with, the problem framing is so fluffy, so you cannot translate it to a data and analytical problem. I think they haven't really, we need AI to improve customer, or sales. Come on. We want happy customers. Come on, can you break it down, please? What is the core question that is the big challenge we want to solve? Isn't that part of this whole topic? We need to get much more knowledgeable and much closer to the concrete stuff and how this works. Not so much for the technology's sake, but in order to articulate our objectives. I think we're poor at this. What do you think?
Maybe, I don't know. So I started recently at Volvo Cars, and I was surprised when I got there that there's already a bunch of projects up and running, and it seemed to be, most of them are really focused on improving existing problems.
Yeah.
So
that is nice.
That may be an exception. I'm not sure.
No, okay. But how do you think about the AI ecosystem? Because if we want to create focus, what are we focusing on together? What will rally us? How should we frame that?
I think that is something that I'm trying to work with a lot of other people for some years now, and we used to call it. We need this Apollo project. Like
explain that story.
Sweden wants to be best in something.
We need to put a bold goal out.
And
I like it.
And
who doesn't want an Apollo project?
No, but you need to rally around something.
Yes,
right? We need to rally around something.
If Sweden just wants to, we will manage, and it will solve itself in the end, and then I feel, maybe not.
What is that bold? What is that clear? I mean, like a super clear statement. What could that be?
I have tried to push this to saying that we could be the best in energy efficiency.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Because
goes with Vattenfall's.
And that I'm saying because the first thing that I did when I was in RISE was actually working with the data center research in Luleå, and that started actually after Facebook chose Luleå to put out the first non-US site, and now I think it's.
I was at Vattenfall when this happened. I know I work with the guys that made the deal happen.
Okay, great.
So,
shout
out to Rick.
And now there are 3. I think they have a kind of building permit for 5 different.
I need to tell the story.
Yeah.
When this happened, Rick, who was the guy stitching this together, he was invited down to Silicon Valley to talk about much more efficient data centers. And I think it was something crazy, like Jeff Bezos standing on stage. There was like a conference for the Silicon elite, and they think they know the shit. And then he's like, you know what they're doing? You know what they're doing with Facebook up in Sweden with Vattenfall? This is so cool, la 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 la. Like Jeff Bezos talking to the Silicon Valley elite about this deal in Luleå.
Yeah. And it's interesting because then I was working with Torbjörn Minde and others that had started the research, and everywhere I came, we went to Monaco, and when I'm saying I was on Luleå, everyone in data center world know.
They know this.
They know where Luleå is. They don't know. They don't know.
This was the first. Like this was like, are you saying you are using the cold? This is so smart. It's more efficient and it's so green.
And actually, that's something that is now in the. I'm also working in one of my European missions is to be an advisor to the European Commission on where to put out supercomputers.
This is another rabbit hole we should go into, the supercomputer topic. Anders has prepared us for this. Should we take it now or should we leave it a little?
No, but I can just say that in the kind of plan now, it says that it should be placed in where it's cold, nationally cold, not in the sun.
Of course, but just to sort of wrap this up, are we good at making objectives and what we are moving into now? Because now you stated like one objective or one bold mission could be we should be the best energy efficiency or something like this.
Yep.
Because I remember the first, as an example, how we have improved. I think the first topic that came out in terms of how we want to frame AI in Sweden, I think is very vague. It's like, we should be, we can not be the best in the AI tech. So we're going to be the best in using AI. And this is like, it's like, duh.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a strategy. You cannot, this is a platitude.
Yeah,
and
it's
a
obvious.
complete it's so obvious, right?
We can't build a large language model, or
you know. So
we
someone
can't
said to me, if you can't put not in front of it, it's not a strategy. Strategy is about choices. So if you say, we're gonna have the best, we're gonna have the most happy customers. Who doesn't want that in a way, right? I mean, like, so you need to put it. So I like what you're saying. Like, we're gonna be the best in what? Efficiency? Okay, interesting, good. Or I go Jan Bosch in Chalmers. Sweden, Europe, we are great in technology. Our software industry is about embedded systems. We don't build large. We're not going to build the large cloud providers, but we are damn good at embedded systems in automotive and all that. So maybe that's our thing. Now we're talking, right? So I think this vagueness is one part of the problem. And someone needs to do like you did now. Say, let's focus on efficiency, energy efficiency, and make that our thing.
And then you can kind of other things can connect.
Yes.
So that...
because then you can start unpacking the beast.
So, but I'm thinking that the problem sometimes in Sweden is that we say we want a leader. Because and so as soon as someone steps forward and say, I can be the leader, then you have to kind of...
but what is that? Because now we're almost moving over to the next topic in terms of how to work, how to make success happen in Europe and how this Finland does it. Because we have this sort of very decentralized way of working that is very nice in some ways, but at some point we can't really... We get into a fight where we almost like we talk shit about each other instead of finding our spot in the team. I don't know how to frame that, but there is something here that I think is super important to understand what we need to do differently that you are onto here.
Yeah, and I'm thinking also that we really need each other in Sweden.
Yes.
A sad thing that I'm thinking also is that people say that Facebook is in Luleå, in the northern part. Facebook is in Sweden. I think that everyone in Sweden should be proud of that Facebook chose Sweden. And if we could think more of that, for example, now when things are moving a lot with the green energy in the northern part of Sweden, that's in Sweden. I mean, it's only we that think that it's in some specific part of Sweden. Other people doesn't know.
No.
For them, it's Sweden. And then
why do we do that? What is that all about? Is it the Stockholm versus rural versus Gothenburg? What is this happening right now? Why are we doing like? Is it the geographic? We are such a tall country. So in the sense we're half the Europe in one country, right? Is it? Why are we doing that? Because I really sense that you're onto something here.
I think we do it because we can afford to do it. Since we're thinking that we are such a rich country, we can. We don't have to be. I mean, like we have 290 municipalities. Some of them are small, like 2,000 people. And they are supposed to give the same kind of services as Stockholm's,
which is of course impossible.
municipality. Yeah. And people that are living in these small communities, municipalities, they want to have the same service because they pay
the taxes.
They
the same.
pay even higher taxes.
So from a fairness point of view, they should have the same service. But we have this is something is not really adding up here.
No, and I'm thinking that we kind of have to be more to feel that we want to help each other. We are in the same country, so because I've actually been in kind of discussions where people saying if it can't be in my city, let's the Finn have it. Instead of thinking, let's Gothenburg have it, or let's Stockholm or Luleå have it. Instead of that was something that I learned when I was working in Brussels as a lobbyist, because I was working for the northern part of Sweden, and I was and it was in the time when we actually changed the anslutningsfördraget to actually include the sparsely populated kind of. In Sweden we have more money because we have sparsely populated areas, and we did that together with the Finns and with people from Spain.
But let's park this. Kirill, let's do the AI news now, because I think now your anecdote around these topics and how this works in Brussels is telling us something of how we need to organize ourselves better in the AI ecosystem. Because I think the learnings of what you learned and how it works and how the Finns work different. I mean, like that whole story you told me upstairs is beautiful. But let's do AI news first, and then we go there. There we go. AI news.
It's time for AI news.
So, Jeanette, we have this
AIAW Podcast.
We have this section AI news. It's really started with the ChatGPT, the LLM craze. There was so much happening every week. So we said, okay, what's the latest news that we want to sort of highlight that happened since last week? I know you have an interesting topipe to talk about. I think. Are you ready to drop a scope?
Yeah.
You're not going to get in trouble.
Hope not.
No one knows. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think don't you start with the headline news? So you start with the scope.
I'm excited.
What?
I'm excited.
I mean, so now I talked it up, but
No, but the short background before I say what it is. An interesting thing is that in the European Commission, it's usually that you kind of negotiate with the member state first. But now, since ChatGPT came, they feel like they want to be on to the next thing before anyone else is. So they are kind of arranging meetings with people that they think have expert knowledge in the AI area to find out what is the next big thing, so we don't miss it in Europe.
So that's a slightly different in way of working here or thinking.
Yeah, it's totally different. But then if they can be agile enough to catch it, so this Monday afternoon we had an informal meeting with people that are experts in the area of large language models collapse.
Oof, yes, the big news.
Yeah.
So this is two news in one. So it starts with the news that we could highlight about the large language collapse. Could you just elaborate on that? So now you have two news. This was the big news, and then we take it into EU. Yeah. Can you do that?
The thing that are now the experts told these people, well, maybe 20 people from the European Commission there, were showing that how large language modeling, the evolution, and all of these kind of synthetic data that are poisoning these models. And how if we are not able to have better input, better data than these models are trained on, like the open AI models and so on.
So they highlighted the collapse has something to do with synthetic data as a way to find more data to train on.
Yeah, and I'm not a super expert as you are, but the interesting thing is that we are now going to continue next, have more meetings on this, and going to have inputs to what can we do to avoid this collapse, to see that we have data that actually gives us models that we can rely on, and that we can use it, because if different kind of experts showed also the poisoning that is happening with all this kind of fake information, synthetic data, and even though it might be a good idea to try to, since most data are on especially if you have health data, it's only on white male in a certain age, but if you are not so it's easier. You have to. So it was really an interesting thing, and they were really interested in seeing how these kind of.
So really fast. So the collapse was just a couple of days back, and they got experts, and the expert was in talking with the key people in the commission, and now you're already sort of working on. Do you have a sort of a working group starting to slowly shape up to have more meetings on these topics?
And just pause a little bit before you lost me. What is the large language model collapse?
Is that the collapse is when the data is kind of when you have so much data that has been generated, and you don't know if it's true or not. So when you're doing the next kind of model, you have a lot of data that you don't really know what it is, and then you're building the model on that.
But
so some kind of vicious circle.
But was it in relation, when we used the word collapse, was it refer to what happened with Gemini, or what was
No. No. But that showed what it can do. But so this was actually decided before the collapse of when ChatGPT went mad, and also Gemini. It was before that.
So the core topic was when ChatGPT went sort of a little bit berserk in some. We did the kind of agenda before all of this happened. Okay.
So when this happened, it was like, totally we should have done this first, maybe earlier. Yeah.
So you actually had the call as this is actually in the cards to happen. It's like how can we make the models collapse? So if you do this, if you use too much synthetic data in the wrong way, this was sort of. How do we avoid that?
Yeah, and the people, different experts also from different countries showed the problem when we really want these models to work.
Yeah.
Everyone that works with models want them to work, and want to have data that are high quality data that they can build these models on. So the result that we actually, because in Europe we want to have fair, ethical, we say data. Models, AI, not biased.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we cannot trust models, and you started to talking about that, are we going to build in our models in the American models, or how are we going to do that? So this is something, and something that I feel a lot when I work in different kind of contexts. I have both supercomputers and AI when I work in Europe. We really want to try to find the European way.
Yeah, but and to back up into what is the scope here, this is actually what happens now when you are inviting people to search for the next big thing and talk about this. We're actually looking at a slightly different way of working in the Commission to start inviting to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
That is sort of, so this is sort of what happened here and what was done last week, so to speak.
Monday this week.
Yeah. That is not the way it used to be done.
No, and this is a great opportunity for Sweden.
Oh, let's talk. Now this is the real scope.
Yeah. No, I mean, like today, a lot of people in the European Commission thinks that Sweden is the best country for large language modeling.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we have great people. We have people. We have been done. You have been.
Technology. Good people,
Magnus Agren and Daniel Hillblad and Fredrik Heinzen. We have a lot of people.
They know him. And they've been part. They met him in the AI.
They know them. They are well connected, and are super respected. So Sweden, I get a lot of nudges that you should take lead in this, Sweden, so Sweden has the opportunity to take this lead in working with large language. I mean, we have also people have really high thoughts of our morality and the way that we are not leaving people behind in the society. That we are trying to
solidarity,
help.
all this.
We have been working with this a long time. So we have a big kind of.
You have a cred.
We have a big cred.
We have
super.
a cred on this.
So that's why I think we could take lead in energy efficiency, large language modeling, and also in this edge computing. As I mean, we have been working.
The whole edge federated machine learning topic. I know the guys at Scale Out, so we know these guys.
So I'm thinking there are different, and so we have so much good things that we could take lead in.
But then we need. Okay, let's park that. Now we're in the AI news, so let's come back to how we could take lead on this. I think that's a brilliant topic. I'm going to leave it to you. Thank you for that first news. What's your news?
Great. I actually have two different news that I happen to see. One of them is, I guess everybody has heard about Sora by now. So the wonderful videos that came out of the OpenAI model. And what blew everybody's minds, I think yesterday or something like that, was the one of the cases of this new model that's coming out of Alibaba, called the model is called EMO. One of the cases is the Sora woman.
Yeah, they took the woman from Sora.
It's called the Sora woman, which is from the I think it's from a Tokyo street scene with very special lighting, and there's a stylish woman with a leather jacket and glasses. And now she's also singing Dua Lipa. So it's
so they took it one step further.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful, from a still image, you can animate the face and the lip sync to the music. So it takes in the music and it takes in one still image, and you can generate something that's moving. Is it possible to show it to show it live? It is worth seeing if you haven't seen it.
Can you get some sound?
So if you've seen this image, this video without sound, this is amazing.
That is.
That's the next problem. What to believe?
Because all this is super fake. Oh, fake! AI.
I mean, it was AI from the beginning, and now it's now it goes. The AI generated still image of a video generated by AI is now going into the next model. So it's like you go from model to model, and that seems to be like a common theme now, that the models are becoming more multimodal, and they take input from other models, and there's cross pollinations everywhere. Oh no! Wow.
AI generated.
Yeah.
Is it any AI generated Dua Lipa as well? Like the sounding, the
the sound is the actual voice.
Yeah, okay.
And then they do the lip sync.
Lip sync.
But it's also, I mean, it's not just the lip sync, but it's like the whole face moves, and it's amazing. So that's one thing. And then they have there was another model released from Google DeepMind, which was the Genie. That's a way to take a still image and generate your own interactive game out of it, basically. So you can model the model is about interactions. So if you take that, maybe you can take the image of the woman, and maybe you can control her in an action game or something. So that's one way of that's one direction I see now, that there's a lot of models are going multimodal, and they're using something from another model as input. So it's super interesting to see where that will lead us. And I think there's also robotics going into this. So you're generating movement, which has,
the potential of you can use spin and spin on these topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of implications, but I'm going to leave it there because I have another thing that I wanted to highlight that I saw yesterday also that was super cool and even more techy and nerdy. There was an invention recently which this builds on called 1-bit transformers. So there's a big thing about the size of models. I mean, the large language models are large, but one way to alleviate that problem is to make the unit each number in the model. You can make it smaller, so you can make the it's so as small as you can get, which is basically 1 bit.
So a 1-bit transformer means, or could you say it in another way?
Yeah,
so you're shrinking something else now.
Yes. So instead of usually what you end up with in AI is that you have matrix multiplication. You have a bunch of numbers that you structure in a matrix, and you multiply matrices together. And that's the basis of everything that has to do with GPUs. GPUs are super good at this. But what's happening now is that we're finding a clever way to scale out the common factors out of these matrices and keep as small as possible the actual matrices. So if you take it to the extreme, you can say that we only store not just one image, not just 1 bit, but you have -1, +1, and 0. So you have 3 values inside.
3 values in 1 bit.
Yeah. So it's they call it 1.58 bits because it's the log of 3.
So what you're doing is now you're doing the work, but you have managed to compress or whatever.
So you managed to compress, which means that it's faster, and it's also takes less space in the hardware, and that's similar to what we've seen before with Grok, as in not the Elon Musk Grok.
Yeah, but the LPU.
Exactly. So this.
And what is an LPU?
It's a specialized hardware to be faster and more efficient in handling this. So this is on the same trajectory. This has not yet, this 1.58-bit transformer is not yet specialized hardware, but I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes, because this is a really big thing. We're scaling down everything and we're more efficient with this approach. And the cool thing, if you want to go really nerdy into this, the cool thing that I talked about with 1, 0, and -1 is that when we multiply that with another matrix, then everything is just, instead of a matrix multiplication, then it becomes just addition, which is a whole different level of math. It's much simpler to do. So everything becomes much faster and more efficient.
So what we're seeing here is that as we go more smart, the way we accelerate, it's not just in the size, but it's in the techniques of compression.
Exactly.
Techniques. So when we say we're going to have Moore's law, like we talked about before in transistor, and the way we've been measuring sort of the Moore's law of the logic of scaling large language models, from now it's a clear trend that it's not that simple, because we are scaling the the index is a combination of now you're increasing the capacity or acceleration in several dimensions or vectors, is several spaces. So in the one hand side, it's a combined efficiency we need to look at. How big is the model? How compressed is it? And how
the complexity of the calculations becomes simpler.
So the 3 variables that actually in the end exponentially probably accelerates the efficiency here. It's the typical, like you have 3 different dimensions. This is it's the normal compounding effects. So this is hardcore compounding effects. Like if I can increase that with 50%, and this one with 50%, and this one with 50%, the total increase is quite big.
There's something to that. And the most immediate effect is that the models become smaller, which is more on a linear scale, but still it's very important. And when it comes to the actual calculations, then you go from, instead of matrix multiplication, which is if it's the fastest version, is order of log n times n, which is less than n squared. But now you're going to something that's linear instead, because that's a half order magnitude less.
Half order magnitude less, which basically then, because we were thinking how we have a problem now when the models get bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we're solving that problem in another way.
Yeah, and there's if I try to extrapolate a little bit from this, it feels like so we're seeing new hardware probably.
Yeah,
LPUs. LPUs is already there, and this is something new that might come out as a new hardware.
Yeah.
And we see.
So we see hardware optimized now for this
Yes.
architecture.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And if we draw it out a little bit, if I try to take Andrzej Karpathy's vision about LLMs, he's seeing LLMs as the kernel of a new operating system.
Yes.
So we're going to end up maybe with a new computing paradigm where the computers that we have today
is LLM oriented as a kernel.
Just as well as the MacBook that I'm using today is now in a different. It's using ARM instead of Intel. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're going to end up with a new computer architecture, a new architecture for the LLM era. Could be. Yeah. That's really drawing this thing.
And now it's interesting now because I saw. We're going down a rabbit hole here.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but I saw a TED talk, or actually I saw a panel with Jack from NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And he basically said we needed to make our bets on the architecture 10 years ahead. It sounded ridiculous in his space, and this is now why, right? How can you make a prediction on architecture with this?
Super interesting for if you take the NVIDIA perspective now.
Yes.
They're on top of the world right now.
Right now in this, and we betted on Betamax.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, exactly.
This is Betamax or VHS problem, right?
But the problem is, I guess, if I were Jensen, I would think like, how do I stay ahead of the curve? Because with the LPUs that's already there, and new architectures.
But he probably has so much IP and so much capacity in relation to this field, so it's easier for him. The barriers to entry to switch is lower for him than to go from scratch, I would argue.
Yeah, but I think it's problem. It is a luxury problem, but it's still a problem if you're on top of the world, and you're making something that everybody wants. And you're seeing that maybe the industry will shift.
Is the Kodak moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's super interesting.
Good. I have a couple of... that's a great rabbit hole, by the way. A couple of more news. We have... have you all seen the Klarna? It came out so big this time in Sweden. The Klarna made some a lot of stories about... how much efficiency they got out of their AI chatbot. Have you seen that? I think that came out 1 or 2 days ago. And they're talking about sometimes that in the first 2 or 3 months in production, it literally has done the job of several hundred people. So it's mind-blowing stats, absolutely mind-blowing stats. Klarna, who is the financial provider in Sweden, which are very, very tech-savvy. And they've gone all in and done this, and they put it in production. And I've seen a couple of different... I've been trying to following what's the social media commenting on this.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things standing out that comes in. I mean, like, first of all, one crowd says, you know what, that is happy thinking. You know, it's too good to be true, yada, yada, yada. One story of this. Then someone said another story, which I think is quite interesting. Klarna has made a point where they actually... They don't allow the AI bot to go so far. So as soon as the AI bot gets sort of just a little bit wishy-washy, immediately it switches to human interaction. And I think the general consensus on social media is that is actually a very prudent way to do it. Yeah. So you have a chatbot, and you don't try to make it perfect. You don't even try to go for 60, 70%. You go for 40%. You go for 30%. Boom! It's 700 calls, blah, blah, blah. So they actually it can probably do up to 80% accuracy, but they actually switch it at 50, you know. So the way they've done that is prudent.
But how do they make the switch? How do they know when they should switch out the bot?
I don't know the details, but it seemed like the way I can interpret from the text is that the algorithm is made in such a way that if it feels certain of the answer, if it's a straight answer, if it can find the answer, it goes for it. If it doesn't have a certain answers, it leaves it. It immediately switches. So to avoid hallucination. And then, of course, you have the third camp who basically said, oh, you know what, we were sitting with this fucking robot. It was bullshit. And the best thing was we had to figure out how to fool it to understand that it couldn't help us. We got to talk to the real person. So, what to believe, right? So mega big, impressive press release, some interesting comments of how they are, switching over to humans. And then, one camp to say, oh, you know what, I've tried it. The experience is not that great. Bottom line, even if you scale down just a little bit on, or a lot on what they think they've done, super big savings. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm working with a case just like this on Volvo cars.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's super interesting. I posted this as something to look into, something to be at least to take inspiration from.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing today, when we investigate the cases that we get from email, chat, we don't have voice call transcripts yet,
yes.
but that's in the works. What we're seeing is that there's in the emails, it's quite hard to first of all figure out what's happening, because people tend to write very long letters, and some things are not related, and it's harder to answer. But when it comes to the chat transcripts, when people are typing,
they type shorter, right?
Yeah, then it's shorter and it's more to the point, and it seems like they have a specific problem that they want to solve.
This is more programmable, so to speak, with the
So that's something that we can see, that with the given resources that we have, we could make that happen. We could make that automated to some respect.
And to some degree, I'm not surprised if in reality a large language model with a good training data can be way more efficient, because it's also the speed, right? Because it's immediate. You don't need to think and type; it just comes straight away. So I'm not really surprised that the velocity is that much higher.
Yeah,
and you can.
I mean, velocity is okay. I mean, you still have to make a call to an API somewhere if you don't have your own language model in-house.
Yeah. So what's the turnaround time on a response?
It's relatively quick. I think
10
it's
seconds, 20?
No, it's so we're not running this live right now, but it's more like 1 to 2 seconds.
So your expectation is like two seconds latency.
It's super fast.
Which is way faster than if you had another human typing,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
What is your views on the Klarna?
I think this is a good example.
Yeah.
And I think that most Trafikverket has also done a really good example on when they're doing the anställnings paper. When they are recruited, you have and it's always the same. So they made this robot processor. So if you find these, I'm thinking also that a lot of people want to do so much complicated AI.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to have a human eye. They put away dishes.
Instead so much mundane shit.
Yeah. Instead of seeing, this is something that occurs every day, and I have 10 people that are doing the same thing every day. If I can automate this, these 10 people, they can do something else.
And they can actually, that's how you get more happy workers, I think, in some way.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it's a good example, and especially that he shows also then he can scale. I mean, these, since they are
I think this is the key point with Klarna. Klarna this is the difference between doing POCs and doing something in production. And to show something and have 1, 2, 3, 1 point, a couple of million calls. This is the topic, right? To build an AI system that scales. Yeah, this is impressive. This to me is
the potential is really good.
The potential is huge, but people will just talk about it, and then Klarna goes out and does it. This is what impresses me, I guess, the scale. Yeah.
No, so I hope that could inspire more people to start working on, because I'm thinking instead of trying to do this super difficult thing, start to think, we want to go to Mars. What will we do first?
Elon Musk, he needs to solve he needs to get out of orbit. He needs to from orbit, that's it, right? So obvious.
So I'm thinking, I think that is a good example, and I think that we really need to understand that if we are not fast on this, we will be subcontractors, and then we will not, firstly, the bias, we will not be able to tell what the kind of values this bias will be based on.
Yeah.
And we can't sell things because we are only in the production line. Someone from another country are selling tourist productions or elderly care in Sweden.
Yeah. Should we leave the news, or do we have? I had a couple of more news, but we could also leave them because we talked quite a long time about these news.
Well, it's up to you.
I want to share one more news, which is a little bit different, but I think it's good relating to our conversation here today with Jeanette. Did you see there was a post from the Singapore Parliament? They are coming out with a new subsidy in Singapore. This was in the Parliament 26th of February in their Parliament, and this went viral. There is like a video from the Parliament, someone speaking on AI and talking about this subsidy. And there are two things that blows my mind. You need to watch this. We'll take it later. First of all, how eloquent the person, the politician, is talking about data and AI in a way that is not platitudes. It's to the point, simple language, and beautifully concrete. And I was like, wow, that's what we need. We need people who is educated enough in their job as politicians to really understand what this is all about. That was the first sort of thing when you watch this video. Then it was the subsidy itself, which I find super interesting. So on the 26th of February, Singapore proclaims they will offer every Singaporean over the age of 40 to go out and get a new degree at the age of 40. And their argument is simple. It's a little bit like we need to really step up into lifelong learning, and we need to step up that basically what we learned in 20 years is not applicable anymore.
Definitely.
And how can we have our whole society work then? And then he made, I got goosebumps thinking about it, because then he talked about what happens when you bring people of the age of 40 into university again. It's paid for by the state. You're supposed to do it, and you're then collaborating 18-year-olds together with 40-year-olds. There are so many spin-off positive effects on this in terms of learning. Like, so they bring experience into the university, and the young kids is bringing the mindset and the points of views to it's just connecting the whole fabric of society back again. So I think lifelong learning is go nuts on education, and then basically recognizing that we really need to think about the whole. We need to think about the whole story here. It's not about redoing the education for kids. No. It's about lifelong learning now, so we need to redo the whole thing. And it's a bold move. Everybody get a second university degree for free. Wow.
Yeah,
isn't that cool?
Yeah. Really. Canada did that some years ago for women.
Yeah. But we talked with Eric Hugo on this podcast about this last week, where we think this is one of the biggest. He saw this as shame on Sweden. He lived here for 27 years. He thinks Sweden is great. How the fuck can we leave our educational values behind? Free education for all. We talked even on the educational reform in the 1800s that really built the industrial Swedish wonders. It built Nobel, it built LM Ericsson, it built all the big Swedish. It built the Swedish wonder. The 50 years of prosperity was built on the talent coming out of education reform that took us out of poverty and farming, to be honest. And the core game was not the elite, but it was education of the masses.
I think it's a great thing, and I think also that it's a little bit up to the individuals. I think we will have to, as individuals, be lifelong learners.
Yeah, we need to switch on. Yeah. I mean, like, the state can do so much, but you lead a horse to water. Yeah. Yeah. But we need to drink water ourselves. Yeah. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think it's great because when I was working with gaming, I got connection with Canada because they also paid people $50,000 to come to Canada and start their gaming company.
They went nuts, right? And they have an AI Wonder today.
Yeah. And so they also saw that there was an equality in the tech world. So they started to do 3 things. One was to have more tech for girls in kindergarten, trying to stimulate the interest. And then in the school, when girls are about 14, they saw that even if they were really good at mathematics and logics, they kind of just didn't continue because, something happened. And then they focused on that. And then they also gave women the possibility to go 2 years in education to learn more. If I was a nurse, then I could go and learn more about that. So when I came back as a nurse, I could use all these because the skills that I have from technology and compute.
Combine it with the domain.
Yeah.
But when I see some of these topics, they are so obvious. And there are so no regrets. So do we really need to think so hard? Is this something where you need to have a political debate across the blocks? Or is this so obvious that some of these things we should just focus on getting done? What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking what Jesper said. Every person in Sweden can actually do this.
Yes, that's true.
And also I'm thinking that we could either think that this is my responsibility to be have a good life and be interesting in the labor market, to see me sure that I actually, and it's like not knowing English. When I'm talking, I have a lot of groups with younger girls because I'm really interesting to see that this new kind of game changer, so few women are part of this, and it's even this trend in education. Less and less girls are choosing to starting on technological educations, and we see that in the future people need to have much more competence in tech. So if half of the population decides this is not for me, then we have an educational problem.
And then really, it's like, why don't you have more women on the pod? Why don't you have more women on Data Innovation Summit? It's really, really hard. Both, they're not enough, and then in the end, they don't want to do it. They don't want to speak on stage.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Really crazy stuff. So we get a lot of floggings around these kind of stuff. Oh, you need to balance this up. Yeah, we want to, but you don't want to be here. What's wrong with you? So I think this core topic, how do we flip it so the women or girls want to have tech? That's the main. And this is the tricky one.
And you have also, because I know that if someone asks me, do you want to be on stage, I always say yes.
But you are different, Jeanette, in this sense. I think you are.
Yeah, and I want to be a role model for others. And I say to people, well, it's what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, exactly.
They will never kill me. Sometimes sometimes I feel like I've done something super great, and sometimes it's not so good. But if you never do it, then it's like I an anecdote also about, since I'm a mother of 2 boys. And I was working at the National Road Administration, and we had a really good, the highest, the top dog. He was really a good guy, but he had accidentally said that a lot of young women left the office, and he said, "Oh, that's a shame, but we have all these great old men." So it
came out wrong.
Yeah, he didn't mean that, but it came out wrong. It came out wrong. Yeah. So we have this kind of he put out a group, and they asked, "Oh, we are now going to work with equality, and can't you lead this?" And then I had done this before, and I felt I don't want to be. No, I didn't even want to be part of it, because I felt like and they said, "Oh, please come." So I came at the 3rd meeting. And when I came into the room, I was a bit late, and then my boys, they were 2 and 5 years old, or now I was younger, 1 and 4, because then I was in Brussels when I was 2 and 5. Okay, so so they were really young, my boys, and everyone, because I have a habit of having kids, and so everyone knew my boys. And it was this kind of feeling in the room that they were only women, and it's all these men, they are never letting us friends. It was like they were really a lot of hate.
Frustration.
I was, I call it even hate. I was like, oh, they were so bad. It was like they were evil on the world. And then I just stood up and they said, oh, are you leaving, Jeanette? Yeah, I'm going home. And I'm going to kill Oscar and Gustav because you say all men are evil. And then I think all boys should be killed. And they're like, oh, what are you saying? And I said, well, if we say that all men are evil and they are all... So that's the... No. Yes. So then I said, okay, what have you ever done for me? I'm also an engineer. You have never helped me. You're always helping the guys. You have never helped me. So we got to start a discussion. What are we doing ourselves? Wow. Instead of saying the men is never going to let us out. I said,
what have you done lately?
We have to take space ourselves. And then, of course...
this is the thing. We like you can give space, but you also need to take space.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah. And also
that's tricky to talk about sometimes, right?
Yeah,
because you're not politically correct when you say that.
No, I know, but that's something that I'm not. But I'm also like to provoke discussions because I'm thinking that every person.
We have two provocative statements at least today.
I have so many more.
Can we have one more? But this is fantastic, because this is really interesting. What is your take?
Yeah, I'm thinking. You're mentioning that it was that you want to be on stage. Was it always like that, or was it something that changed you? And what do you say to your female colleagues if they doubt should I be on stage?
I'm often saying that because I perform as a ballet dancer, so that's why I'm not afraid of stage. But of course,
that's actually a good thing, right? That's something that you had really early in life that probably shaped you a bit.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But I'm thinking. I give out. I have a lot of adepts talk about this because I'm saying, of course you're nervous. Think of what you want to rehearse, stand in front of a mirror. When your heart is kind of feeling like it's jumping out of your chest, think of do some counting. So there are a lot of different techniques, and everyone has to find their own.
But in the end, you need to put yourself out there. Because there is will you fold to the pressure? Will you be scared? Or you want to step up and face your fears, whatever they are. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing here.
And then I'm also thinking of, since when I was in this kind of super male environment when I started to work, then I once, I have so many anecdotes from this one, crazy. But one of the things that I realized after a while was that I could do a lot of the fun things and a lot of the hard work where the guys that were we were recruited at the same time, and after a while it felt like they were really harsh on them. They were on the boys, on the men.
They got the tougher. You got more.
They were always so nice with me, all the men, but they were really on these crown princes. They were really hard on them. They were like kind of seeing if they could
if they would
crack or not. Yeah, and that's something that I'm telling also to women that that's part of the game.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't be.
You're not going to get the top jobs if you haven't been tried.
No, and that's. I mean, it's hard. It's even hard. So it's sometimes I feel like some women think that you're just a man and then everything is kind of served. You just go into a room and then you get the executive. But it's not true. A man has to work as well. But of course they are in the norm, so it's a bit easier. But it's not for free.
No. But
yeah.
And how do I'm thinking again about sort of the same question about this going on stage, and how do you handle that if you have employees, for example, that who feel like this is hard. People are being mean to me. Like, how do you motivate them? How do you tell them that this is part of the game? Because it sounds a little bit like hard. Can you make it into something that they can understand and work with? You see where I'm going?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm thinking that's why it's so good to try to have some mentors.
Yeah.
And understand that, okay, this is if I want to to reach my goals, if I want to do this, there are different techniques, and how do I maneuver in this, and when these different backlashes, like someone says to me, it must be so fun to have this interesting job that you have, Jeanette, but what about your boys? Are you seeing them enough?
So you get that female question back at you again, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. I never get that question.
That is still interesting, right? Because that is saying something.
Yeah.
I mean, you get that from the guys or the females?
No,
of course?
it's from women.
From women, of course. So women want to lift you up, but they still want to drag you down into the same topic.
Yeah, and
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and I think that
they should really be ashamed to ask that question if they want to go after the same game as. They shouldn't ask that question then. Or they shouldn't put that on you more than the husband, so to speak.
No, but the interesting thing is that in this society, women are also bearer of norms.
Yes.
Have to really understand, okay, for example,
Exactly.
when I've been traveling a lot,
so true.
My husband, he has, sometimes when I phone home, I remember once my oldest son, Oscar, he was going to, and they were going to do something in school, an utflykt. And then he said, I didn't have anything at home when he was going out in the morning. So he had 2 kind of hårdbrödmackor with him and smör. And I felt like, okay, well, that was good. And I felt like, why didn't you go out? But I felt like, now, if I now go and say, I think you did wrong, why didn't you go out in the evening and fix something? Then I kind of,
then you
he solved it. It was not perfect. But if I had said to Oscar, you have a really bad father, he didn't go out, then I wouldn't. You have to think.
You're actually programming yourself back into the same mother role again.
I'm thinking, great. And I mean, I remember.
Can I get you to talk to my wife about these topics?
Yeah.
Because I will never. I fully recognize that, of course, my wife should expect the same standards from me as she can deliver on these topics, of course. And at the same time, I'm not as good at this. I can feel sometimes on these topics. I have no excuse. But what happens when you get into, what you highlighted now, the way you manage that, even the poor man, he did a shitty job, but, put him a little, I think that's very smart. I think you will then grow together.
If I would have like the first picture he had, Oscar had as a shirt, like I said, yeah, but
like in school, a picture in school.
School picture, like.
And his dad, you let him wear this?
Yeah, I mean, and then I realized if I was starting to say something or putting out clothes, Oscar will have these. Yeah, well,
you're putting yourself back in the box immediately.
Yeah. And if I want other, because my sons has, since I've been traveling so much when they were small also, and my husband's parents living in Stockholm, I sometimes took them with me in the airport to Stockholm, and grandfather, grandmother took them. And I remember once when I was in Brussels and I was phoning to my to the boy's grandfather. And I said, what have you been doing today? Yeah, we have been in the forest. What have you been doing? Yeah, they've been using knives. I like, okay.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Even grandfathers will be boys.
Yeah. And they didn't.
They didn't die.
They didn't die. So I felt like, okay, if I'm trying to kind of, everyone must be able to do it in their way, and it's good. So,
but you had to. But I applaud you, Jeanette, for this thinking, and I think it's so hard. I think it's so hard, but I think this is the game to play. Because if you play the game because if you maybe you are better at it, and I don't want to go into why you're better at it or why men should be better at it or should not be so bad at it, but it's simply playing the game. Because if you're playing the game the wrong way, actually everybody's putting themselves back in the old same boxes again. And I think that's the refreshing thought that you are trying to push here, is that I need to bite my tongue a couple of times, or else I will put myself back in the box where I started on these topics.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and also thinking, I have a friend that he moved in with a new woman, and he kind of arranged everything in the kitchen, and then she came and said, "No, you have done everything wrong."
Yeah, exactly.
And he felt like, well, I'm going to live here. It was kind of compromise. No, it's going to be my way in the kitchen.
Okay. Then obviously this is your kitchen, and then how can you go back out? How can you back out of that claim?
No,
you can't.
No.
You put yourself back in the box.
But that's also an interesting thing, is that we are talking about power, and when in the school they had this discussion when Oscar was little, that we had all the boys' mothers in one group and all the girls' mothers in one group, and one of the question was, do you as a woman have power?
Ooh,
and if you were agreeing, you kind of you would raise, or you would sit down and remember, but everyone else did one thing and I did the other thing. I think that everyone, if you don't have power, stand up. And everyone stood up except me. And I said, well, hello, we are all mothers to boys. Don't think that we have power? And if you think so, then I think that you really, really need to start discussing with yourself, because everything that you do, if you are a good role model for your boy, he will be a good man. But if you kind of, because I meet so many people that think they are doing things the right way instead of doing what they're feeling, and I have so many stories about that. So I'm thinking that sometimes women think that they don't have any power, and in some areas, like, these are my kids, I don't want to let them man in, these are my things, instead of thinking we have different share all the power. I mean, my husband does a lot of decisions that people would think that I would do, but I say, why? He has done all of these things. I think it's perfect, good. It would not have been the same as me, but I love it.
Because I think that's sometimes the difference, that I genuinely think I've done a good job, and I think I solved it differently. And depending on which yardstick you use, or which, what is the value you are trying to teach your boys, you could argue that my way was better, or my wife's. And I think that's maybe sometimes that we are looking at it as like, oh, you didn't do it as I did it. I've done this for 10 years now, and you did it differently, so you didn't live up to my standards. But I was like, but I wasn't really going for your standards.
No.
I was actually going for, if the boys don't fix their own lunch, they don't eat. That was my standard. But you didn't fix their lunch. Yeah, but I show them, I discuss with them in the morning that you need to fix your lunch now. And we don't have so much at home, so you need to be creative. So it's like, but when you try to explain that, actually I was going for another objective here. I think that discussion becomes very tricky immediately, because like, but you know what? When I do this, the lunch is perfect, and this is like this, and this is like this, and then I'm like, yeah, but I kind of think you're curling the boys right now. I don't really like what you're doing. In all honesty, I'm not really gonna play that game with my boys.
No.
And you want me to play that game because you think that's the yardstick? I have another benchmark here. And then we have then this becomes really tricky, I think, because I can never win this argument. It's really tricky argument to have. Deep in my bone, I feel I was trying to do something else, but I can't articulate it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And the interesting thing is that I think that is a problem that a lot of women had to really face. In our family, it was like I came home and my husband always says, "Yeah, I have decided now that the boys will do their own washing."
And
okay?
You take it as if he's being lazy, right? You think it, but he's not.
No, exactly. I said, great. Yeah, I bought a blue box for Oscar and a green box for Gustav because we had these color differences. They were Montessori kids,
Let's see if this works.
Good.
Did it work out?
It worked out perfectly. Wow. Yeah. So they
really?
Were. Yeah. And since I didn't interfere, I just said, great. Great. The boys, they did the washes. And then when a couple of weeks later, Olle said, yeah, I'm thinking now that they should start to do a meal once a week. I like, yeah, great. So in 1 year we had makaroner och köttbullar once when the little boy was doing it. It's like, and I'm really picky with food. I'm like, yeah, great. And the older brother here, the pyttipanna.
So we had Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yeah, it was crazy. But after a while, my husband then found this Linas matkasse. So that was really great. They came with recipes and food. And the younger boy, he called it Linas hatkasse because he thought it was so difficult. And I said, well, it's good. Now you're learning to read recipes and things like that. So now I think that was
ask how old the youngest was then?
Well, what kind of been? Was he maybe 10?
Oh, that's good. I'm really impressed with that.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's impressive. This is way harder than AI. But I don't know. We are really running out of time. Can we steal some more time of you? I love the conversation because I really want to go back, and I want to hear your short version. How do you make decisions happen in European Union? What did you do first? You thought it was, and then how does it really work? And what can we learn from that and bring home to the Swedish AI community? Yeah. Because the story we talked about earlier before the pod, I think is super interesting. It's really straightforward when you think about it, but we are doing it wrong. So the whole thing with contrasting of how we in Finland or how we go into this topic of putting our agenda forward and how decisions are really, really made. And I think not many people really think about how this really works because it means we need to understand the game and play the game in order to have any influence. So that's where I'm coming from here. Yeah. So I think you have so much brilliant knowledge about this. Yeah. And you have proof in the podding. You put some legislation through, you talked about, what do you call it?
Sparsely populated.
Sparsely populated. You get that in the EU-förordningen.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So that was and that was the result. Yeah. And if I take an example of something that people maybe know more about, because this was back in the days, more than 10 years ago. In Sweden we have only forest.
Yeah, a lot of forest.
A lot of forest, and in EU they want to protect forests.
Yeah, we don't really need to protect forests in Sweden
because they have some kind of forest. Someone also asked, "How many forests do you have in Sweden?" I like one. Sweden is a forest. And so all of a sudden, people realize we are going to make a new decision that is going to be bad for Swedish and Finnish industry that are really using forest. And then you try to influence the European Parliament, because now it has been in so many different, because there is a way of every decision how it's made.
It's a very detailed process.
It's a very detailed process, and if you've been working with that, I will come back to that. But often you jump to the very end, where it's very, very super hard to make any decisions, any changes in decisions. And if you are going to try to change a political decision like you have to in Parliament, then you have to understand that you maybe have to talk to over 100 persons. You cannot talk to the Swedish guy and say, hey, don't you understand that if this is going through...
You need to influence everybody pushing a button to some degree almost, right?
Yeah, and no one will do that because they don't understand. You have different layers. So if something, now I'm just making something up to have a discussion. An example. It will be a restriction on using water.
Okay.
That could happen, and so they are talking about it politically, and their discussion. Maybe we need to restrict how much water someone can use. Okay, 2 liters a day. Some person in one of the directorate, like in a department in Sweden, gets the you have to do the investigation, you have to do facts, you have to take in a lot of input, and starting to do a kind of suggestion on how many liters of water shall every person in Europe have. And it looks at, okay, how many liters do someone in Spain uses? Okay, 1 liter. So they make a decision on a suggestion, and that kind of then travels into this decision chain where you sometimes have people from the national ministries that are negotiating through the permanent representation in every country. You have different kind of experts, and every, now this was such a simple thing, but in this chain of decision, different levers are kind of designing simple things. So if you, for example, if this is a big thing and the simple thing is how many liters of water, no one on the top level are going to talk about these liters of water because they are talking about regulations, blah 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 blah. So if you have this information on in Sweden, actually we need 10 liters of water because we have all these kind of differences that we need an exception. Everyone else has 1 liter. We need an exception.
We don't have a water problem, but we really use a lot of water due to.
Yeah, and we have a lot of... Then you can see, okay, when you then continue, Sweden from the beginning has this... because we base this on fact and say, we cannot... Sweden has to have this kind of special treatment because of this and this. And this is not going to rub the... kind of disturb the...
whole Congress.
No. So... if you're starting to talk to persons that are actually doing the work, then it's in the text, and then it's much easier. And for example, if for countries like Finland, they are having since this is both a kind of official. You're working with member states, and you have decisions that are in this change, but you're also working with this different kind of informal decision making. It's like the meeting that we had on Monday, and organizations. So these are, if they are also saying, for example, that Sweden needs 10 liters of water, it feels like, it's important. Sweden will have this 10 liters of water.
But if I contrast or relate this to daily life, working as a consultant, selling to big corporations. I have worked as a salesperson, and I worked on decision making in Vattenfall. I think what you're talking about is really bottom line, a couple of core things here. Step 1, you need to know the decision process inside and out. And then when you talk about a decision process, you need to understand what is the formal decision process steps, and what is the informal decision-making stakeholders along that journey. So know your decision process.
And you need to know the facts also.
This is step 1. Step 2, get onto the people who are preparing the decision material. So in this sense, the only way to really contribute is to basically make life easier for the person writing something, or supporting them with the facts, or basically getting your facts in. You collect the facts, you have the facts in order to shift the buying criteria, or to shift the criteria, or to be part of setting the criteria. If you try to get in on the end, the criteria is set really hard. So, and then thirdly, you said, is the difference between formal power and decision-making authority versus informal influence. And to navigate this now, if you don't understand these core things, to go to the guy writing the stuff, understand the process and actually who is going to influence what at what part of this chain, you have no clue what you're doing. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and also if you understand the chain and you see that, for example, we predicted that if you take this water thing again, we predicted it will be scarcely a water and this is an asset that Sweden wants to preserve. This is something that we are really. Then we maybe shall start talking about how many liters. I mean,
Then you bring up the topic. You highlight the problem. You drive the problem question. So that this is really also about. Don't start in the end. Start with. If you want to really drive something, you need to start way at the beginning, feeding the problem. Feeding the problem that leads to a proposition.
Yeah, exactly. And that is something that we could do in the AI ecosystem in Sweden. If we, for example, if we take this energy efficiency, I mean, it's so many parameters that is important about talking about this. So if we would like to have that, we could start working on now I know that our work done on energy efficiency, but so that would be something that we could do with the people that are ministers, and something that Finns also do is like, even if it's left or right, they have, if they are, for example, when they decided to build all of Finnish Lapland with, I mean, I don't know if you have been there, but it's amazing. You are in nowhere and they're like 20,000 beds in a city where 3,000 people lives. But they have this kind of log houses, beautiful. It's so crazy, impressive, and they've built that for 20 years. In these municipalities, they have used money from the European Union to build infrastructure. They didn't kind of change every fourth year because they knew that we are going to build this kind of. This is the city, the vision that we started to talk about, and then it could be different ways towards this, but
it seems like they get over the political differences and they go for they get over the regional differences, whatever, and they in the end stick to one plan or one story.
Yeah.
And you said it before. Doesn't matter who you talk to, they will all tell the same core message.
Yeah.
That is different.
That's a different, and for them also it's like Finland first. When we were working with this sparsely populated fördraget, it was most of my colleagues. I can't take so much credit of it, but when I was at different meetings, I met people from Helsinki, and I said, "Wow, great! But you are working for Helsinki. This is for Finland," they said. And I'm thinking that it's interesting that we kind of regionalize things that, this is good or bad for Skåne or good or bad for Norrland.
We do that.
We do that instead of thinking, this is great, the green industry in Sweden, great.
But how can we relate that back to AI? So how could we find the common theme and a common voice in AI then? What would that be, and how would we may need to work differently in order to come to that key message and then stick to that across political and regional borders? What is the difference we need to make now, in your opinion?
I think that actually I don't really know where the problem is, because everyone says this is not a political combat. No. Everyone thinks this is good, and some people say this is why nothing is happening, because it's
no debate.
No debate.
You don't want win or lose voters on it.
No, so I still believe. I know that we have this AI commission that I know they are going to trying to be very concrete and do things. It's not just talking about things and doing new papers and investigations, because we have done that a lot. So I'm thinking it's more of how to get this to fly is to start using and also be prepared to, like in Klarna, not trying to solve the hardest problem.
The hardest problem.
Starting to say, this is good enough.
This is the first problem. Not the hardest problem. What is the first problem to solve?
And how can we... what would and then kind of level up to Swedish national level, see, okay, we have all this infrastructure, we have municipalities, we have all of this. What can we start doing that gives the first best results?
Sounds like a startup mind. Like do the simple things first.
Do the MVP.
And then MVP and then iterate.
Yeah. But okay, let me okay, in this context, what would be your advice or vision for... We started up a new Swedish AI commission quite recently, led by Svanberg. We have several friends. Heinz is in there. Who else is in there? Are you
Martin
there?
Svensson.
Martin Svensson. Are you part of the... No, you're not.
No. Yeah.
What do you hope... What is the best outcome of how to use the AI commission that is set now, so it doesn't become another report that's going to say the same stuff that you kind of said already in 2019 with 25 topics?
Yeah.
What is the maximum impact value that we could hope for, that the AI commission could sort of change the game or gel us together maybe, or what is your wish that could happen with the commission now? For me, it's a fear that it's just going to go one circle around the table, or is it, what if they could do this? What would that be?
My hope would be that instead of doing more reports, they would kind of... what we need in Sweden, we need the Swedish authorities to start working, because then companies can learn, because one of the things we have to face, people don't know what this is. People don't know how to use the tool. People don't know what they want. So we have to start educating and learning, and then we also have to start working with IT companies, so that if I'm a big, if I'm an official in an authority, working together with the ET company, so that we can both learn, because otherwise, if we are going to, we must, on one hand, protect the companies, the small, medium-sized companies that we have, so they can learn and not be kind of, we take things from others. So that the, and also that it will be regleringsbrev to every authority, how to use and how to combine, because they are...
So to get it all the way down into a directory of each authority, regleringsbrev, I don't know the English
I don't know
word.
what it is.
I have no idea.
So regleringsbrev is the core directive that the board gives the authority, or what is their their frame, sort of thing.
The minister sets to the different... Every minister has different kind of authorities.
Yeah, and this authority is then... It's a directive that highlights the regleringsbrev, what they should do. And basically, one key goal could be to get a clarity on AI inside in relation to their objective and authority.
Yeah, and I know since you already said that Patrik Ekenwa has been here, they have also done a lot of assignment from the government to see how this would be able, because some things would... Almost everything that you do together is better.
Yes.
So there are a lot of ideas on how to do things together. Especially a lot of small municipalities, they can't do this. Yeah. And they maybe be the ones that need the results most.
But maybe that's how do you think about this core topic? If we pick, it's like the same in a large corporation. When you get started, it's very hard to put out a little bit of money on AI to 100 different bosses around the company, and no one can do anything, because you need to make an effort, a concerted effort, an orchestrated effort to start building infrastructure, to start building a cohesive strategy, to start building a cohesive patterns of how you build stuff. If we go back, what happens when 50 different, if everybody is doing their own thing, it's used adhocracy. And maybe that is one key topic now. We need to find a focal point who is leading the way, or how are we setting standards of this? Because we are basically point solutions all over. But is that part of the problem here, that that someone needs to decide where do we central this focus? There's no center point. I think that's the problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you agree, or
I
do you
think,
see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and hopefully the AI Commission can kind of point out. And I'm also thinking that in Sweden we have to be kind of then also generous. Okay, if you can decide on this, what my children will have tomorrow on clothes, that's okay with me. It's not what I would have preferred, but it's okay because we are moving forward.
But this is the core problem back in, we want to be decentralized, but if we don't want to federate around the decentralized approach, if we don't want to have standards, we only have a bunch of anarchy point solutions. So the challenge is completely centralized monolith, we would say, technology monolith, or we need to have a federated platform architecture. You know what I mean, right? You can apply architectural topics to this problem, I think.
I don't mind a little bit of anarchy, though.
No, but what happens?
It's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's better than nothing. But can you get anywhere in all small pod? Can you go? I think the challenge with agility at the extreme is that you have the coordination costs are simply massive, right? But the monolith is too slow.
Yeah, I'm trying to draw parallels to where I'm standing, and I'm saying like it's better to do something than to do nothing.
This is no one. I agree with that.
That's a start, and of course it's better if things can gradually become more cohesive and you find a common strategy. But I think
you don't start with
where we're standing now. I think it's much better to do something than to wait for.
Yeah,
for
but I'm
situation.
thinking you can salary administration.
Yeah.
Decide this is one. This
is the way we do it.
This authority will do all of this. There are things that are similar that everyone has to do, so that we can decide. Okay,
we're not going to have 10 different salary approaches.
Let's do one.
But our decision making is not set up that way.
No,
at all.
No,
in Sweden.
And I hope that we don't have to kind of go back to being poor before we start. Because why is Finland so keen on this? They started to see if we are using AI, we are going to have this standard of living.
Why don't they have our problems? Why don't they have our problems like we do? Is their steering mandates of the different authorities different? Is their starting point very different? Because I find sometimes that we don't have the directives, and the way the structures is set up in Sweden is really, really hard to do centralized efforts. Don't they have that part? Is it a different structure, or is it simply a different mindset and the way what is different?
They have been in wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sweden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a hard.
They have. The Second World War. Everyone knows that someone died then. They have had hardships in Finland.
So they have this Finnish sisu, bringing them together on key topics.
Yeah, and they know that they have to fight for themselves.
So you're saying we're complacent.
I remember also when I was working a lot with people from Finland.
Interesting.
And they say, well, yeah, you're big Swedes.
Big Swedes.
And it feels like, and I've been in meeting with the people around the Baltic Sea, and I was with someone from the ministry. He's not working there anymore, but then I said, okay, so it's going to be in English then. He looked at me and said, of course not, it's going to be in Swedish. And it was in Swedish, but very few people really understood. And so it was, since those areas had, when Sweden was big Sweden, it was Sweden, everything. So, and then I realized, okay, I understand now what people in Finland say when they say, oh, okay, you are big Swedes.
They mean it.
Yeah,
they're not cynical with us. They mean it because they remember sort of.
Yeah, but it was cynical.
Cynical.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you think that you're still like you were when you were
Stortiden.
instead of saying, okay, this is happening, we really need to see how can we help industry best. I mean, I remember when I was in the National Road Administration and really were fighting for different kind of infrastructure to Sweden, and people in the ministry said, no, we think it's better, I mean, for them to have them instead of us in Sweden. And I felt like, yeah, but if we are the only country that thinks so, then is this going to be good? No, so I'm thinking that I'm hoping a lot.
But you said before, they at the end, when they decide on one topic, the other people rally up and they take their place in the queue. They basically they see the greater good and they go with it, and they are not sort of bickering about it.
No, that's also the problem in Sweden. Like, we are kind of fighting each other in Sweden instead of thinking, okay, Sweden is one country. I will everything that happens in Sweden.
We're exhausting our energy on the wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And fat lazy cat. Instead of thinking that this is a chance for us and for our children in the future.
Yeah.
Working together.
We're getting on overtime now, so I think in one way that could be the ending.
It's a good ending, I'd say.
Is it a good ending? Anders going to kill us because we didn't get to the philosophical questions then.
Yeah.
But it was a good ending there.
Yeah.
I think we end here, Jeanette.
Yes, great.
Fantastic. Really good pod. I love how we talked about our children as well. But that tells us something about so much.
Yeah. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Jeanette.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
De här tryckte lite grann på mitt huvud så jag kunde inte äta.